Hello, I know it's been a little bit since I did my first live YouTube video. And again, I talked then a little bit about myself and a little bit about my farm. My name is Jessica McNamara. Um, I run and own Aesthetic Equine with my family, and we are currently a Morgan and Andalusian focused breeding farm located in Wisconsin. So I am building up our channel. This is one of my second, I guess, live videos. And since it is Wisconsin and it's January, I'm still stuck inside. I do have hopes to get you guys out. You can check back on some of my, I don't know if you want to call them throwback videos. I have a bunch of saved stuff from years back of different horses that we've just done for fun, or maybe a buyer requested some footage of the foals, or I think with some of our studs back when I was young and back when the studs were definitely a different age than what they are now. We had created some videos for Morgan Promotions, so going to Midwest Horse Fair. So feel free to kind of explore our channel, but I'm hoping to kind of document and build upon our live and definitely get you a little more connected to what we have going on. I also have done this on other social media in the past, and with spring coming, even though it's a little ways away in Wisconsin, I love to be able to take my phone out and do some lives and just talk about what we're seeing with our expecting mares, or maybe talk about the different stallions. But I definitely also want to create some featured videos and work through some of our herds so that you can meet the horses more individually. But with winter, we've had really weird winter here, so it's icy footing. It's just not ideal. Plus, the horses are beautiful in all their fuzz, but sometimes for some of our younger ones, that also hides that beauty. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got into horses. So again, my name's Jessica, and I guess my passion for horses and the reason that we run a farm and the reason that I have enjoyed creating videos and, building some of my pages and connections is simply just this unknown passion that I was born with. Now, I know some of us are exposed to horses and we develop a passion. I was not raised with horses with my family, yet from the time, like, I have any memories, horses were always something that I had a very strong, I would say it was an obsession with. To be able to see them. If we went somewhere and went, to the fair and there was horses there, I loved it, but I was so enthralled with it that also I'd leave almost depressed. And I'm sure my parents were thinking, oh, she'll grow out of this. But for me, it was definitely something, for whatever reason I was born with. I do love all animals, but there was always something special about horses. And not coming from a horse-based family or even a farm. We lived in the country, but we definitely didn't have a farm. My parents had lots of friends who were farmers because we're in, I would say, a dairy community, which some of it has shifted now since I was a kid, but we're still in a farming community with plenty of people who still have dairy, beef, lots of crop farming. So definitely people had horses. I had friends who had horses, but I definitely lacked that exposure with the passion that just continued to thrive and drive me to like horses and enjoy horses, even going through high school. So my first kind of real connection would be having lessons and then finally getting my own horse when I was 11. So I missed my lucky birthday of 10 by a year, but she was a younger horse. She taught me a lot. She was very sensitive. So when it came to riding with cues, I think it did help me become a better rider. Plus, with her being younger, I did have to put her into training, or my family did. We didn't have a facility, but we also, with her age, she did need to get some more advanced training. So I went along a lot of times with her training and did very advanced lessons, from anything on the ground to tacking her up to, kind of focusing. I mostly rode. It was for fun. I didn't compete, but in hunt type equipment and hunt type style, and definitely more geared towards what you would see in the show ring. So that was my first experience, and I don't remember it all, but I do know Fancy, my first horse, definitely taught me how to be one that would reflect on issues. She had a lot of great things about her, but I think her sensitive disposition, she also had a lot of things that as a kid and having parents that didn't know anything about horses, that we kind of had to learn. And probably by the time she was middle age to upper age, we had figured out different ways to communicate, and it taught me a lot as far as a horseman or a horsewoman. It just taught me skills of interacting in horse behaviors. So I do credit a lot of what I know and a lot of continuing to keep that passion to my first horse. But as time went on and kind of phased out of high school, I still kept that passion. I wasn't showing or doing anything like that at that point. I had an injury in middle school related to riding horses, and my parents kind of, we pulled back. I still did lessons. We still had the horse, but we didn't really go into any showing, even at a 4-H level. But we continued to have the horse, and going into college, I knew I had this drive and this passion for animals. So I had enrolled to Colorado State University, and in their animal science program, anticipating or kind of thinking, and at that age, 17, 18, it's really hard to know what you want because you don't even know all the options that are out there. So I had gone to Colorado and explored connecting to veterinary science. And the interesting thing about Colorado State is they actually were a big enough university, and they had focuses. They actually had specific horse programs. And I think it did open my eyes a little bit to understanding there might be options within the horse industry, but I also was able to see that with the cattle and the beef and all the different species, because they had very specialized and a very large programs. So I definitely, even though I only went to Colorado State as a freshman, at that point finishing, just because of the academics and the amount of time it takes to become a vet, I had started to shift away from that thought as a goal, because I was understanding what it was going to take to be a veterinarian. Not only like the competitiveness, I think now we've even had friends that are saying sometimes it's more competitive or more restrictive than getting into medical school. And so there was definitely this high expectation for your grades, your academic push, and then also knowing that post your first 4 or 5 years, you're going to potentially have another 4 or 5 years invested of very intense schooling and very intense hands-on. And I think at that time, my own personality, it wasn't that it was impossible, but there was definitely some things that it had me open to other careers and really thinking about what I wanted to do. And so after my first year, I ended up going to UW River Falls, so University of Wisconsin River Falls, who also for Wisconsin is kind of noted for having a horse program. It's definitely a smaller based program, but they still had lots of connections. And I did complete through them, a lot of their equine classes, because that would have been my sophomore through senior year in college. And had some great advisors, great instructors who, were doctorates, but also had lessons in jumping, hunting, reining. And I was able to meet a lot of people and get a lot of different experiences through that, along with the classes. One of my favorite classes that I ended up taking through UW River Falls was a colt starting class. And I was lucky. I think it was just the timing of when I went to school. I was lucky enough to work through that program. Sorry, got tongue twisted. To work through the colt program twice. A lot of times it's just one of the things in your academic list. And usually I don't know if it fell junior or senior year, but because I had transferred and I was off by a semester, I think timing allowed me to do it twice. And so I was really thankful for that. I also took advantage of some of their summer classes, as well as travel classes that the university offered, usually focusing on horses, but also exploring some other industries such as dairy and just reproductive topics, because dairy is definitely very controlled, very, very advanced study when it comes to reproduction. So when I was in River Falls is when the topic of different careers came up. And one thing that was discussed was breeding manager. And that ends up being a person who helps deal with a lot of the brood mares. They can be involved with taking care of the foals when they're born. It can also helping train some of the foals and getting them ready to sell. Also, there would be aspects definitely related to handling the stallions, collecting the stallions, helping ship the stallions. And I was able to go to the University of Madison, and they had a short course because at the time, River Falls did not offer any breeding aspects. They definitely had different things going on, but they weren't doing a breeding program at that time. So it was very limited. And I had a professor who I also worked for throughout college as a barn crew. So cleaning chores, doing things, helping them recommend to do that, and ended up helping me get my first job through that class, plus having them be a great reference. And so I did end up graduating from River Falls with an animal science. And so that's just a Bachelor of Science. And I immediately was able to get a job working at Loomis Ranch. So that had me moving to Oklahoma. And there I was the assistant breeding manager, and the focus was reining horses. And I would say, I don't have exact numbers in my head, but I mean, it was more hundreds of mares we were dealing with and 2 main stallions that we were focusing on. So our jobs, again, were collecting stallions, being involved when the vet was there for preg checks and AIs, hauling horses for embryo transfers, hauling any of the breeding stock for health needs, or dealing with their shots, their vaccinations, the worming. Oftentimes we'd be involved with the foals, yearlings, and sometimes even 2-year-olds to do sale prep. So that was a really intense yet interesting job. It taught me a lot, and it actually put some of the stuff that I had learned at my Madison course to practice. And again, it was something that at the time it was so intense that it also led me to know, similar to the experience I would say that college opened my mind to, knowing for myself that being a veterinarian just wasn't my passion, and the lifestyle it was going to take wasn't going to get me there. So I would say that, even though it was a great experience being involved in the breeding program, led me to realize that the intensity of it was definitely not conducive to some of my lifestyle. Because they definitely enjoy spending time with family, having other hobbies. And that was just a very intense career. And so I definitely learned a lot, got to travel between Oklahoma and Texas doing things. Also got to go back and participate with the futurity sale and help with some of the past 2-year-olds in running them through the auction and seeing all that. So definitely probably a once in a lifetime opportunity, and a very high expectation, high class opportunity. And it led me coming back home with some of my own horses and exploring raising foals on our own, just as a hobby, because we had the base knowledge and we did have a few horses. And so really we did this as a hobby before we started our farm probably 10 years ago. We've probably semi done it as a hobby since like 2006 or so. And that career and everything that I had gone through definitely led me to realizing I wanted to be able to work a job that I could enjoy and that I could love, but that also allowed me to have the kind of connected farm life, or be able to run a farm. And so I ended up completing my teaching degrees, and those are in sciences and agriculture. And I won't go into that, but so if you sometimes find that I'm not always on here, or you're wondering why I'm absent from something or why I don't do more, is because I actually do have a different job, and that is being a teacher. So that's kind of, definitely interesting, and it's definitely fun. And I love when I can teach the ag classes because it relates so much to what we do here. So definitely I would say short courses, college courses are all things that can definitely help you build a career, especially with horses if you don't have or you don't come from a family that had any horses, which was my experience. In later years, we established our farm. At the time, we started just with some Morgan stallions, and our focus at that time, we didn't have options to be shipping semen, so we were just doing offering a limited live cover. And even that, I'll go into some of our breeding program, but I mean, we did slowly start this, and then we established that we needed to have a group of mares to be able to raise foals with. And that selection process for us when we started, some of it was definitely budget based, but also picking your own qualities that you liked within the breed. We had many friends who had some of the Brunk lines, the very old Morgan lines or the foundation lines, and I liked some of what I saw in their horses, but there was this appeal to me, definitely what I saw in some of the main ring events. And so it definitely plays a role in the horses that we have picked on our farm and being a breeding manager and finding your own values and, doing some crosses, anticipating a certain expectation in a foal and seeing if it actually formulates. And many times it does, but sometimes you make a cross and you expect something and it's not necessarily that it's bad, but it's not what you expect or what you are striving for as a breeding program. So you are able to shift and adjust for that. So we definitely have learned a lot, and we continue every year to learn about horse care, horse management, because as horses change, the industry changes, research changes. So we feel very valued in having a good veterinarian communication. I know if you just have one horse, oftentimes your interactions with your vet could be very minimal. But for us, the interactions definitely are a part of our learning and constantly checking in. Are we up to date with what is best in our area? What type of environmental factors maybe will affect our vaccines or affect a worming routine, or what's going on with a horse that we don't expect to be having issues with feed. Just how do we manage doing their teeth, doing their feet, rotating and timing of vaccines. And when you get a mixed age group, that plays a big role. So I definitely also encourage people, reach out to those experts, your farrier, your vet. If you have a separate dentist, they're all great ways to keep learning about horses and to keep learning about the industry. One thing that I will kind of end on, because I've given you quite a bit of what I've done, and definitely it's probably a unique path compared to anyone, but that's one thing I've learned in horses. There isn't just a single path that people follow in their learning, in their experiences, or for us in the example of building a farm. There's not just one path. So we are definitely kind of paved the way for us as first generation. But one thing that I definitely enjoy sharing, probably within the last 5 years, I've been doing it a little bit more, but is working on attending judges seminars within the breeds or disciplines that I personally enjoy, or that I maybe take some of our older horses to compete in. And it's really interesting because when you're competing, you might be seeing or thinking one side of what's going on in the show ring, or presenting yourself in a certain way. But if you actually can get behind the scenes or go to some of these trainings, it's really interesting to see it from the judge's perspective. And also it opens up a whole new level of career opportunities or even side job opportunities related to horse shows. You have the horse show management that sometimes we take for granted that they're there, but they're doing all the paperwork. Sometimes they're connecting to your registry and making sure that your points and you're up to date on everything. And I think, there's a lot going on there. And being a judge, there's a lot going on with the training. There's a lot going on aside from watching the individual spectators, knowing the legal aspects of the tack, or what happens when something goes wrong in the ring and how that affects, or how different things are handled, such as disputes, or getting positive feedback. And I don't focus my training on being a judge and finding judging jobs, but I definitely continue to do that because it teaches me a lot. The one thing that I have done a lot of and continued, I say, at training, even though it is a side job for me, is ring stewarding. And that would be at many of the larger shows, you'll see sometimes two people, or it depends on the breed and what the requirements are. But for a single judge, you might see a second person out there. And I think sometimes when you are showing, you might just assume there's two judges. And sometimes that is the case. But in certain breeds, that second person is probably a ring steward or a scribe. And their job is to help making sure the communication between either the announcer or the show management and the judge is all kind of going smoothly, that instructions being led out in the ring are maintained. Sometimes it's helping organize and even do, if it's a patterned or scored type of class, that ring steward or scribe is their job is to help do the math and help take the notes for the judge, because the judge wants to have their focus up on what's in front of them. So oftentimes that second person is really the form that the judge is able to keep their eyes up, and that person is their hands. It's their hands, and sometimes they're calculating of the math so that the show can keep moving on. Because without all those things going on, I don't think people realize how much a show can be slowed down. So it's a job that I really enjoy, but I've encouraged several people, like, seek out opportunities to do that and find it in the disciplines that you like. But if you just enjoy the horse industry, any of the disciplines, it's really fun because you learn to have a true appreciation for another aspect of the horse industry, so for the show world, or for these barns that host these facilities, or the show management that's doing all the paperwork, or even the announcer to know what's going on, or those volunteers that are doing the gates. Those are all also things you could explore, but today I'm here sharing a little bit about what I've done. So I definitely, I wanted to share a little bit about me. I'm hoping I will probably end up breaking this video into chunks and sharing a little more, as it's a pretty lengthy summary. But I mean, you kind of start from when my first horse comes along. So I'm 10, 11 years old, all the way up to where I'm at now. So you're talking 20 to 30 years of different experiences that I'm trying to just clump on this video and just kind of give you an example of a track. I definitely encourage you follow our farm. You can find us at Aesthetic Equine LLC. You can Google that and find our website. We always have our Facebook and Instagram linked there. I will say, make sure that it's the right Instagram. So far, our Facebook is clear, but we have had a few duplicates of our Instagram, and we actually had our first account overtaken. And so you may still see that one appear if you just do a general search. But we definitely, you can message us and confirm it's real, or you can, if you go through our website first, it'll definitely get you to the correct areas, or you can email us. But I would definitely encourage you, if you're younger or you're working through something, share your story. Reach out if you want to know more about any of the things I discussed. Definitely when it comes to the college classes, my experience, definitely some of the programs are going to have changed, but I'm always happy to share the path or the reasons that I did different things. But I would also, gladly share more of the things that I've learned through working on a breeding farm, running our own farm, working at horse shows. So I appreciate you listening. I hope that everyone enjoys the winter. And again, my goal, February, March, at least the temperatures are better, and maybe we'll have better footing, and I can start to feature some of our other horses. The old girls, to me, if they're in their fuzz, I don't care. They're just as cute. So I definitely could start talking about some of our older horses that we have here.